Billy, welcome to the podcast. It's really great to have you today, and welcome to Toronto.
Thank you. Yeah, it's my first time here, so it's been a really cool 5 days, and I love it. I love it.
And have you been able to catch any other films at TIFF while you're here?
Yeah, I saw The Boy and the Heron opening night. I saw the Lil Nas X last night, that documentary. But yeah, I'm trying to catch as much as I can, and it's a really good lineup. So yeah, it's and then a lot of cocktail party receptions for the Indigenous community, and Canadian, um, you know, film boards, and yeah, it's been a cool like networking thing. So
Yeah, that's exciting. I feel like there's a lot of up and coming people this year because of the strike. It sort of gives room for younger people who are potentially not part of the SAG-AFTRA stuff, especially
right,
within Canada as well. I feel like there's
yeah,
been a lot of smaller things, which has been nice to see.
yeah, and it just seems like since all the big name stars, the films now are now front and center, and that's been pretty cool to see. And the writer directors are really kind of like getting the spotlight rather than the all the questions and Q&As are geared towards the big names. So yeah, that's what I kind of like enjoy seeing is the films are really in the spotlight this year.
So, my first question for you is, did you ever actually get to see Fleetwood Mac live, or is that still on the
You
still on the
go,
bucket list?
you go straight to that. Yeah, as much as I want to kind of like push like this is just a fiction film of this young boy. I mean, it's so part of me, and that's something that I just can't push away or but yes, Fleetwood Mac has been an amazing part of my youth. You know, the album cover of Rumors really struck kind of like something in me, the music from the beginning to the end. And yeah, I've seen them many times. I've seen Stevie many times. And I mean, it's just been yeah, I love them. I love them to this day.
I think everybody who gets a record player as a gift gets Rumors as like one of the first records. It's just one of those ones that sounds so much better played with like a physical copy. So
Yeah, I mean the sound too like isn't as good as a tape or a CD, right? It's and I was visiting one summer on my grandmother's res. And my aunt at the time, she had this record collection, and that was one of the records that she had given me. And it was just sitting in her collection, and she, gave it to me because she saw that I was listening to it that summer. And it was like I was writing down the lyrics. I'd pause it, I'd take the needle off and write the lyrics. And that's kind of back in the day how, now you can just find the lyrics, you know, pretty easily. But it was a pretty cool gift to get, and it stuck with me.
So, aside from Fleetwood Mac, how did music really influence the film? Because it's such a cohesive soundtrack with the film.
I kind of look back, when I was younger. We the film also, my grandmother's ranch, we had no electricity, so everything was in battery, and a radio. And I just wanted to go back to that in the film, and really kind of play with music that you wouldn't normally see in a Native American film. I think people are like expecting to hear drums and those flutes and screeching hawk stuff. And that's something I really wanted to avoid. I wanted to like set this kid who was, taken out of this urban world and kind of put into, the reservation. And I think it's really part of this character, this main character, Benny. And as a kid, for me, music was a huge influence in my life. There was MTV when they played music videos. There was a collection of CDs. Well, not really CDs at the time, but more of tapes and records. But yeah, it was something that was, really we paid attention to in the creation of this film.
And I read that you built or maybe not you specifically, but the film built every aspect of the ranch and all the set design and everything. Uh, Tell me a bit about that process. Did you take a lot of stuff from memory? Was it just sort of sourcing what you could?
Yeah, we found this plot of land and there was nothing there. And we created everything from the corral. We brought in a trailer. Our team, our production, designing team created the Navajo traditional Navajo hogan outhouse, but we had a lot of Navajo PAs and set designers on set, so they understood what this world was. We created this world, and we really wanted to make it feel at home. And a lot of the actors really felt like this was grandma's ranch, their grandmother's ranch. And that was great because once you went on set, you were like, okay, we're back home on the res. We had sheep, we had everything that you kind of would see on your family's ranch on the res. And then, the grandmother in the film, Sarah Natani, um, she was all she just it was like it was her home, and that was pretty awesome because she took on that, the land and the community of where we were at, and she just made it feel like it was hers, and that was pretty awesome.
I think that's really special and really cool, especially because if I'm correct, the a lot of the actors were quite green going into the film, or um,
Yeah, first time actors in a film. I think Morningstar and Martin Sensmeyer were pretty much the only actors who are who've worked in television and film, but everything was they were new to it, and my leading actors who were both 11 at the time, this was their first film, this was their first time. And that Benny was like, we cast him because he was this quiet presence that I really really loved. And he just it was him, that character was him. And Charlie, who plays uh Frybread Face, Dawn, she did her audition, and I was like, that's her. My producer and I were like, that's our female lead. And you know what? It was like, and then grandmother too, the grandmother who spoke no English, only Navajo. And and that was just like, I just my background in my documentaries, because I've been working in documentaries, nonfiction, for about 15 years. So this was my first leap into scripted film, narrative film. So that background in my documentaries really helped working with these first time actors. Is more about finding the nuances and filming them as if, I wasn't too worried about my actors hitting their lines or their marks. It was more about letting it be more fluid and organic, and letting them just just do. And so my DP and I worked really hard, and just creating this world that wasn't too set on making marks, hitting marks, and their lines too. I just wanted it to be easy for them, and it became comfortable. It took a week. We were about a week, and everyone was just like a little, like you said, green. And it just everyone fell into this flow. And Martin Sensmeyer, he's just a pro. So he was really helping the kids and making it really kind of giving them little notes here and there. Um, and Grandma Natani, she was on set, and whenever she came on set and camera, everyone just respect camera crew, everybody. It was just so respectful. And yeah, this was her world that we were in.
I love that. And I love that everybody felt so comfortable in the set that it helped them embody their roles because it really felt like home to them.
Exactly. That's in order to get a great performance from somebody, you really have to create this world that feels real to them. So yeah,
A lot of kids have, those summers where you get shipped off to your cousins or your aunts or whatever, and you don't always see the full picture of your family because, parents, adults are hiding whatever may be going on behind the scenes. Did anything become clear to you as you were making this film about your childhood?
Yeah, I couldn't have made this film 20 years ago, like when I just got out of film school, you know. I needed to have that life experience to really truly understand what our parents went through, and having my parents be both, different tribes. My father was, shipped to Vietnam, at a young age, and fighting for a country still that, didn't really recognize indigenous and native people, that, and my mother grew up in boarding schools, in the States. So their trauma was, just, I understood now, 20 years later, I could understand. And also having kids, I have two kids, 16 and 8. And I think you need to have, parenting, experience to understand, the story. So it just came, it just, when I wrote it, like I said, I couldn't have written this film 20 years ago. I needed to have that life experience to understand fully, and still understanding um, what it is for family, for being an adult, being a parent, and also just, what it was for me to be an indigenous kid in the States.
Personally, I also really relate to not being able to speak with my grandmother. My mom is Chinese, and so my grandmother and my grandfather both only spoke Chinese. And every time I visited them, it's such a physical relationship because that's the only way you can really communicate. And I love how you depicted that with the hair washing and speaking to each other, even though you don't understand. Was that, how did you overcome the language barrier? Did you find that that was the best way to do it?
In the film or
Sure.
in my life? Because they're
Let's
both
go with
pretty
both.
similar, but
Yeah.
yeah. Um, yeah, our main character, Benny, he doesn't speak Navajo fluently. But grandmother did. And that was just the experience that I had. Like you said, like I always had a translator, whether it be my aunts, uncles, or my mom, and that's how my entire relationship and experience with my grandmother was. And making this film and then having it, with audiences watching it, you don't have to be native or indigenous to understand that there is that communication, that's that barrier that some people experience with their relatives. And I think that's why, this film resonates with people that are, non-native, and they understand. Everybody's been shipped off, somewhere, where it'd be summer camp or their families, um, so it was I think it just really kind of was a, central, a big theme, especially since Betty and Fry, she speaks her language fluently. And for me, having those cousins who were younger than me, when I'd go to the reservation speaking fluently, I was just in awe. I was like, this is amazing, and it was yeah. So that experience, I think, that I had was really one of the reasons why I made this film.
So it was almost your own way of communicating to her, even though she may no longer be here, communicating
Yeah,
with her your relationship. Yeah.
yeah. And my grandmother, she passed away about a week before we started filming this.
Wow.
So there was this, I didn't have really time to mourn. I didn't have, so always on the set, there was something there. And I think that, um, those traditional grandparents, are slowly, going away. We don't have those traditional people, elders in our lives that we did, 10, 20 years ago. Um, but yeah, that's just it's a tribute to our relatives and our elders.
I also wanted to ask about sort of the glimpses of maybe gender fluidity that we saw in the film. It was, I don't want to say it wasn't really uh, touched on or explained, but it was just sort of depicted. Would you be able to expand a bit more upon why you chose to include things like that?
Yeah, well, that's my story. I'm a gay, indigenous filmmaker. And but with this character, just like me when I was 10 or 11, you don't understand it. You're thinking it's not defined yet. And that was a huge kind of um, one of the things that I thought about in creating this character, never saying, "Oh, you're gay," or it was just something that like is present, and we just don't, we don't define it, because at 11 you're still figuring things out, and I didn't want to define it for this character, and I think it hits people. People see it and feel it, and like I said, it's not a huge part of this, his who he is. Yes, yes. I mean, there is a strong theme, but it's not the film.
I was curious about what films and what filmmakers inspire your work.
Well, the first time I saw film that really kind of changed my life, I didn't think that I wanted to be a filmmaker at the time, but it was the first time I saw a movie. It was Popeye. It was directed by I think it was John Huston. It was with Shelley Duvall and Robin Williams. And I tried watching it recently. It's not the greatest film, but it was the first thing that I remember watching in a movie theater. I was like maybe six, and yeah, there was just something there. It was this world that like it brought me in, and um, that's where I knew I wanted to work somehow in what was happening on screen. But later on, I knew that I wanted to be a filmmaker. I was like probably 10 when I knew I wanted to be a filmmaker. Um, but yeah, I love kind of I grew up on John Hughes films, Pretty in Pink, Breakfast Club, all of those films that kind of like those coming of age stories, those awkward teen years that you have, and Cameron Crowe also, who's a big kind of influence of mine, and I love his films. And there's great, he's really great at visual, but also the music, the score, his soundtracks of his films. So yeah, that's inspiring, very inspiring. And because when I write, I listen to a lot of music. There was a lot of I had a playlist when I was writing this film.
What is your hope for the future of Indigenous storytelling?
Yeah, it needs to grow. It needs to grow, and hopefully these films and these television shows like Reservation Dogs. I also write and direct on Dark Winds, which is on AMC. Um, yeah, I just hope that people want to go in. Right now, it's so small that all of us know each other. Taika Waititi, who was an executive producer on this film, we've known each other for 20 years. We were making short films at the same time, like, and to see his career go, but he's not just focusing on himself. He is also reaching out to other indigenous filmmakers like, Sterling Arjo and myself, like EPing our projects. So we just need to grow because, like I said, we all know each other, and there just needs to be much more filmmakers, artists, actors, even people behind the scenes, camera crew, makeup. It's big, makes a big difference.
So with Taika, I mean, he's Maori. So how does that experience, I mean, that's across the world, that even though it's different, it's similar. Like, what is it like working with the two and working with Taika?
It's our connection to culture. It's our connection to land. The reservations, across, the U.S. They're very different, but there's also this 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 kind of like connection that we all have together. Um, it's telling our stories that I guess is so strongly connected to our community and our culture. So, whenever he goes to a res, he feels at home, and whenever I go to his homeland, it's the same. It's a community that is so connected, and it's a very unique world. And I think a lot of it plays on film, like his film Boy, people love that film. And with Frybread Face and Me, there's this, it's so similar in terms of, this connection of this world that I think that we're, giving new audiences, something new, and it's yeah, it's exciting.
Well, I really want to thank you for speaking with me and for giving us a glimpse into your world. I think it was really beautiful. I loved it, and so far it's been one of my top ones that I've seen at the festival. So good luck on the premiere, and thank you for speaking with me.
Yeah, thank you so much.
All right,
Thank
have a
you.
good weekend. Bye.
All right, you too. Bye.